Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja, and for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in Washington DC, Jagriti Dave. Namaste, Jagriti.
Namaste Tanvi, it's 10 a.m. here in Washington, 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, protests across Venezuela's capital after an election marred by accusations of fraud. And find out why US President Joe Biden is calling for changes to the US Supreme Court. We'll cross to our correspondents around the world. But first, let's get the headlines.
Israel blames Lebanon for firing 10 rockets, resulting in the death of one civilian. US leads diplomatic efforts to avert a full-scale war between Israel and the Hezbollah. Masoud Pezeshkian to formally become Iran's new president at an official ceremony that has just begun in Tehran. Anti-Nicolas Maduro protests spread in Venezuela as opposition says he stole the vote. Organization of American States says these results cannot be recognized. And massive landslides claim at least 98 lives in India's southern state of Kerala, 128 injured. Indian Army pressed into service. Kerala announces two-day state mourning. So up first, news from West Asia. Tensions between Israel and Lebanon continue to rise amid the Gaza conflict. A rocket fired from Lebanon has killed an Israeli civilian in Kibbutz Hagoshrim. Israel blamed Lebanon for firing over 10 rockets. In another incident, Israel's drones struck a road in southern Lebanon as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promised a heavy response to the rocket strike. Video footage showed a crowd of the Druze region gathering to protest against Netanyahu's visit, some even shouting in dissent. The United States, meanwhile, is leading a diplomatic dash to deter Israel from striking Lebanon's capital Beirut in response to the attack. The White House has defended Israel's right to respond to the Golan strike, but said that nobody wanted a broader war in the region. Israel and the US have blamed Hezbollah for the rocket strike, though the group denied responsibility for this attack. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni called on Israel not to fall into the trap of retaliation, expressing her concerns about the situation in Lebanon and the risk of a regional escalation.
I'm very concerned with what is happening in Lebanon, about the risk of a regional escalation, and that's also something that needs to be evaluated. Every time we seem to be a little bit closer to the possibility of a ceasefire, something happens. It means that there are different regional players aiming for escalation and always aiming to force Israel to react. I also say this to urge Israel not to fall into this trap.
Thousands of Palestinians returned home in Gaza's southern city of Khan Yunis on Tuesday after Israeli forces ended a week-long operation there, which they said aimed to prevent the Hamas group from regrouping. Israel's military said that its forces killed more than 150 Palestinian gunmen, destroyed tunnels and seized weapons. After the Israeli forces left, people streamed back to their homes on foot and carts, carrying their belongings. And I am now joined by our correspondent, Sarah Coates. She joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, Israel says that it wants to hurt Hezbollah, but not drag the Middle East into an all-out war. Do we have any information regarding how exactly is Israel planning to achieve that?
Hello there, Tanvi. This is a very dangerous, a very delicate situation, and one that's really putting a lot of pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister. What we can tell you at this hour is that pressure is only growing, given that one man in his 30s has just been declared dead in the last hour or so, the result of shrapnel from a rocket coming from southern Lebanon, reportedly fired by Hezbollah. So this increase in civilian deaths on the Israeli side, as I mentioned, will only put pressure on the Israeli government. We have heard from Israeli officials that they certainly do want to hurt Hezbollah, but they don't want to drag the region into a wider war. Now, this comes as Western officials are urging their citizens to get out of Lebanon now. The latest, David Lammy, he is the UK's Foreign Secretary. He released a video statement a couple of hours ago. He said, "My message is clear, leave now, the risk is rising." And really, Tanvi, as we go to air, more and more airlines are cancelling, suspending flights in and out of Beirut's international airport amid fear that Israel's response to Saturday afternoon's rocket attack in the Golan Heights, which killed these 12 children playing football on that Saturday afternoon, could potentially result in a wider regional war. So certainly a lot of tension, a lot of worry right around the region.
Okay, we leave it here. Thank you, Sarah Coates, reporting for us live from Tel Aviv. Now, staying in the region, Iranian reformist leader Masoud Pezeshkian was sworn in on Tuesday as the Islamic Republic's 9th president in parliament at a ceremony attended by foreign dignitaries. The event marked a new chapter for the nation as Masoud Pezeshkian took the oath of office, officially assuming the role of the country's leader following his victory in the July 5th runoff election, defeating Saeed Jalili, a former chief nuclear negotiator. Now, on to the Americas. Venezuelans have taken to the streets after the Electoral Authority officially declared President Nicolas Maduro the winner of the election, which opposition says was marred by fraud. My colleague Jagriti Dave is in North America. She takes it forward from me here, gives us more on the Venezuelan elections and other stories making headlines around the world. Jagriti, the Organization of American States have also now denounced these results?
Yes, Tanvi, Venezuela has been plunged into chaos following the recent presidential election, and tensions have flared after anti-government protests in the capital, Caracas, over the disputed election result.
Venezuelans have taken to the streets after the Electoral Authority officially declared President Nicolas Maduro the winner of country's presidential election that the opposition says was marred by fraud. Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Caracas and showed their rage by burning barricades, blocked roads and banged pots and pans in various neighborhoods, accusing Maduro of fraud. The spokesperson of United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Stéphane Dujarric, said that Guterres called for complete transparency in Venezuela's election. The UN chief called on political leaders and their supporters for moderation and said all electoral disputes should be addressed and resolved peacefully. Amid protests, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said that his government knows how to deal with the anti-government protests.
We have been following all the acts of violence promoted by the extreme right. I can tell the people of Venezuela that if they have done harm, we are acting. We already know this movie. So once more, along with the civil, military and police union, we are acting. We already know how they operate.
Estamos actuando.
Meanwhile, 9 Latin American leaders have expressed profound concern and called for a full review of Venezuela's election results. Bureau Report, TD India.
The Organization of American States Electoral Observation Department said on Tuesday it cannot recognize the results proclaimed by Venezuela's National Electoral Council. Many Latin American leaders have rejected the results that declared President Nicolas Maduro the winner of Sunday's election. OAS leaders have also said greater transparency is needed in the electoral process. The OAS will meet to discuss the election on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the United States has accused Venezuela of election manipulation, leaving the door open to fresh sanctions on the OPEC nation. Let's cross to DD India's Mary Trini Mena, who joins us live from Caracas for more. Mary, tell us what's expected in the capital today and fill us in on the international reaction to the election. OK, we're having difficulty connecting to Mary. We'll bring you that story a little bit later. But moving on, US President Joe Biden has spoken briefly with reporters on his presidential legacy when he returned to the White House from a trip to Houston on Tuesday. Joe Biden said he wanted his legacy to be securing the environment and the economy, among other things. Mr. Biden also recounted a personal anecdote from his youth aimed at showing his commitment to both broad economic and environmental goals, as well as his long-standing advocacy for LGBTQ rights. Now, US President Joe Biden is also calling for changes to the Supreme Court, including term limits for justices, an ethics code, plus constitutional changes to prevent complete presidential immunity. He said these reforms were needed to restore trust in the court, and it comes following the highest court's ruling on presidential immunity in Donald Trump's election interference case.
In the face of increasing threats to American democratic institutions, I use the Commission's analysis, and today I'm calling for 3 bold reforms to restore trust and accountability to the court and our democracy. First, I'm calling for a constitutional amendment, the second thing I'm asking for. And I believe we should have term limits for Supreme Court justices in the United States as well. Third, I'm calling for a binding code of conduct for the Supreme Court.
Donald Trump has agreed to an interview by the US Federal Bureau of Investigation as part of its investigation into an attempt on his life. The interview comes as the agency is continuing to look into the motive of the alleged gunman for the assassination attempt at a campaign rally in the state of Pennsylvania. In a Fox News interview that aired on Monday, Donald Trump said the FBI interview is likely to take place on Thursday. The interview is part of the FBI's standard victim interview. The United States will provide $500 million in military funding to the Philippines in a bid to boost bilateral ties amid Manila's maritime tensions with China. The Philippines president had earlier said regular engagements between the two countries were needed to ensure quick responses to maritime tensions. The Philippines has had repeated issues of contention with China this year, although both reached a temporary agreement to ease the simmering tensions.
We're now allocating an additional $500 million in foreign military financing to the Philippines to boost security collaboration with our oldest treaty ally in this region. New steps to strengthen the alliance, a once-in-a-generation investment to help modernize the Filipino Armed Forces and Coast Guard, our first bilateral security sector assistance roadmap, doubling our investments in the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement.
Well, we now have our correspondent in Caracas, Mary Trini Mena, available for us. She has been reporting on the protests on the ground in the Venezuelan capital following contentious elections. Mary, just fill us in on what's expected today. More protests, and also give us a bit of the international reaction to the elections.
We are expecting more demonstrations today from both government supporters and opposition supporters. The government says they will be in the streets defending their victory because they believe Nicolás Maduro won the election. But in the other hand, the opposition is claiming that they have the votes that assure that Edmundo González won the presidential election. So we have right now a complex situation in the country. The situation has been escalating over the past 24 hours with clashes with police forces, people getting out to the streets to ask for a fair recount.
Okay.
And today, there are expected two separate demonstrations, one from government supporters, as I said, and the other one from opposition. There's expectation also inside the country, but outside, with countries demanding also a fair recount of the votes. Countries throughout Latin America, also the United States, saying they are concerned about the results that were offered by the government-controlled electoral board in Venezuela. Right now, the opposition is offering all the tallies that they collected through campaign participants, and they say Edmundo González won with over 70% of the votes, while Nicolás Maduro was accredited officially by the electoral board as the new president of Venezuela. Right now, there's a conversation, negotiations even with close neighbors like Brazil and Colombia in order to find a peaceful resolution for the situation in the country that once again is facing a political crisis.
Thank you, Mari, for bringing us up to date on that fluid situation there. That was DD India's Maritrini Mena reporting for us from Caracas. Next today, Russia's Navy has started a military exercise involving most of its fleet in the Arctic and Pacific Oceans. The Navy is conducting drills in the Baltic and Caspian Seas. The drills involve 20,000 personnel and 300 ships. They are aimed at testing the readiness and capabilities of the Navy at all levels. Since launching an offensive on Ukraine in February 2022, Russia has conducted numerous military exercises on its own or with other countries, including China and South Africa. And that's all from me here in Washington. Back to you in the studio, Tanvi.
Thank you, Jagriti. Such a pleasure having you with us on the show live from Washington, D.C. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. Bangladeshi activists protest deaths from demonstrations against reforms to job quotas. And India's Manu Bhaker wins a second Olympic bronze, becomes the first athlete in independent India to win 2 medals in the same edition of the Games. We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Well, India woke up to the sad news of massive landslides sweeping through tea estates and villages in India's southern state of Kerala. Well, as per latest reports, at least 98 people have been killed in these landslides. Heavy rain caused hillsides to collapse, triggering a torrent of mud, water and tumbling boulders, resulting in landslides in Wayanad district of Kerala. The situation remains grave and casualties may increase. 126 people have been rescued so far. They are receiving treatment in various hospitals. 2 teams of India's National Disaster Response Force, 2 helicopters, 4 columns of the Indian Army are assisting the State Disaster Management Authority in carrying out search and rescue operations in the Mundakai Hills of Wayanad district.
When this information was received about the landslide in Wayanad district, we already had a team in Wayanad district for the pre-monsoon deployment. This team was immediately rushed to the spot and it started its rescue. Besides, the ongoing rain is proving to be a bit of challenge, but we are continuing with our total might and with our total commitment.
The Indian Army's Engineering Corps is reaching Wayanad. A 200-member army contingent will reach the landslide-affected area. An Indian Navy team will join the rescue operations there. A naval team is reaching the area as well from the Edimala base. More from India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the inaugural session of Journey Towards Viksit Bharat, a post-Union Budget 2024-25 conference in New Delhi. Here, more than 1,000 participants from industry, government and think tanks attended the session. Addressing the session, Prime Minister Modi said that the day is not far when India will become the third largest economic power in the world. The Prime Minister said that India's fiscal prudence is a role model for the world.
2013-14 में जब पिछली सरकार का आखिरी बजट आया था, डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी के सरकार का लास्ट बजट, वो 16 लाख करोड़ रुपए का था, 16 लाख करोड़। आज हमारी सरकार में ये बजट 3 गुना बढ़कर 48 lakh crore रुपया पहुंच गया है।
New Delhi will host the 32nd International Conference of Agricultural Economists from 2nd of August to 7th. The conference will focus on the theme, Transformation towards Sustainable Agri-Food Systems, offering a unique platform for agricultural institutions and researchers to gather in person, exchange insights and contribute to the global agricultural research community. Over 740 representatives from 75 countries are expected to participate in this event.
पिछले कुछ सालों से जो एग्रीकल्चर की इकोनॉमिक रिसर्च है वो कमोडिटी से हटकर, एक सेगमेंट से हटकर एक होलिस्टिक अप्रोच उसमें आया है, जिसमें थोड़ा उसको हम नाम भी दे रहे हैं फूड सिस्टम अप्रोच, जो सीड से लेकर एंड यूज तक पूरे के पूरे जो वैल्यू चेन है उसको कवर करता है। तो एक इसका मेन फोकस इस कॉन्फ्रेंस का फूड सिस्टम अप्रोच पे होगा।
Activists in Bangladesh are protesting the deaths from demonstrations that killed nearly 150 people across the nation this month. Earlier on Monday, Bangladesh said that it had restored internet services as conditions returned to normal after students called off protests against reforms to job quotas. The agitation, which began in universities and colleges last month, flared into nationwide protests that injured thousands. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez declined to answer questions in his wife's corruption case on Tuesday. The judicial investigation against his wife has led him to consider resigning in April. Under the Spanish law, close relatives, including spouses, can refuse to answer questions when summoned by a judge. Now, India's star shooters Manu Bhaker and Sarabjot Singh bagged India's second bronze medal in 10-meter air pistol mixed team event, defeating South Korea 16-10. With this, Manu Bhaker becomes the first athlete in the history of independent India to win 2 medals in a single Olympics edition.
Indian shooters Manu Bhaker and Sarabjot Singh scripted history with a bronze medal in the 10-meter air pistol mixed team shooting event at the Paris 2024 Olympics. This was India's 6th Olympic medal in shooting and first ever in a shooting team event. The result also made Manu Bhaker the first athlete of independent India to win 2 medals in one edition of the Olympics. This remarkable achievement, particularly her bronze in the 10-meter air pistol, made her the first Indian woman to win an Olympic shooting medal. Bhaker's triumph was even sweeter given the disappointment she faced with a malfunctioning pistol at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. The support from Khelo India and TOPS played a crucial role in her Paris success. Following the duo's victory, celebrations started at their residence. Speaking on the victory, their family and friends expressed gratitude.
उत्साह देख रहा हूँ ना, तो वैसे ही लग रहा है कि आप लोग जितने जोश में हो, खुश हो, मैं भी बहुत खुश हूँ। पूरे देशवासियों के लिए बहुत बड़ी खुशखबरी है और इसके लिए इस मौके पे मैं सभी देशवासियों का धन्यवाद करता हूँ, जिन्होंने इतना प्यार और आशीर्वाद दिया और मनु को टफ टाइम में हेल्प किया।
आज बहुत खुशी हुई जी, ओलंपिक का मेडल बेटे ने कढ़िया जी। जिला वाले वासियों को बहुत बहुत बधाइयाँ जी। दीन गाँव को बहुत बहुत बधाइयाँ जी। मेरे गाँव के सरपंच सतविंदर सिंह बब्बू जी, जरनैल सिंह सरपंच, नवनीत सिंह सरपंच जी, उन्होंने बहुत बहुत मुबारक।
Born in Jhajjar, Haryana, Manu dabbled in various sports like boxing, tennis and skating before finding her true calling in shooting. Manu's international debut came in 2017 and she quickly made a mark. At the 2018 Youth Olympic Games, she won gold in the 10-meter air pistol, becoming the first Indian to achieve this feat. She has since bagged multiple medals at ISSF World Cup events in both individual and mixed team categories. On the other hand, this is Sarabjot Singh's first Olympic medal. Earlier, he missed out on a podium finish competing in the men's individual event. Sarabjot has been a Khelo India athlete since 2019 and has participated in 4 Khelo India games as well as is a target Olympic podium scheme athlete. With this feat, 2 of India's 6 Olympic medals in shooting have now come at Paris 2024. The only other time Indian shooters won 2 medals in shooting at a single edition of the Olympics was in London 2012. Narayan Singh's report, DD India, Paris.
Those smiles stealing hearts of a nation. That's all for this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles. Facebook, X, that's Twitter and Instagram at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can catch all the latest news and updates from India and the world on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. So we will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team here in New Delhi and elsewhere in the world. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.